Hello, welcome to Big Bang Radio Spotlights. This is a show where we talk to independent artists from all around the world all about their music and their process for making it. I'm your host, Isaac Anderson, and today I get to sit down with musician Burris. Without any further ado, here's the interview. Burris, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. I want to start at the beginning of your musical journey, just like I do with all the other artists that we talk to on this show. And the first question I want to ask you is, what is your earliest musical memory?
I came from a musical family, so my parents were both band directors. Dad's the director of bands at the local university. My mom was my middle school band director. So I've been going to concerts like for as long as I can remember, since memory didn't exist, I feel like, inside. But I think I remember vividly, like one of the first moments was when my brother was taking piano lessons, and I would go into the classroom that he was taking them in, and it had like a carpet underneath it. And then there was two grand pianos, and I would lay underneath one of the grand pianos and just kind of like fool around and have a good time while he took his piano lessons. He's probably like sweating bullets because he didn't practice, and I'm just like hanging out underneath the piano. So that's probably the earliest musical memory I can think of.
Heard that. Well, it sounds awesome that you had a musical family, because when I hear you play, and it's particularly when I hear you sing, there's a very natural musicality that you exude, that it just seems like this stuff is just kind of flowing out of you, and it just feels like it is a part of you. When did you start writing music? Not even necessarily, as Burris, but like, just music. Like, when did you start writing songs? Like, was that something that you had to hone, or was it just something you'd always done?
It was about in like 8th grade, 7th grade that I started doing that. How old are you there? Like 13 years old, right? I remember listening to music all the time, and not just the music that my parents made me listen to or the music that I was like playing classically or something, but I was always really into Good Charlotte, a lot of early 2000s punk music, Newfound Glory, that kind of stuff. So I think once I really started getting into those records, and then 8th grade hit, I knew that I started to want to do it on my own. So I started kind of just like writing songs like that, stealing from them, that kind of thing. I still play one of the earliest songs that I ever wrote live, because it's actually not so bad after being revamped a couple times.
Oh goodness, would you be able to tell us what song that is?
It's called Crumbling Down. It's actually not recorded, or it was, but then we took it down. But so now it's just kind of like a live song that we'll play. But maybe one day get it redone again.
I know it's a treat for your fans whenever you play that live. So
yeah, I love telling them that I wrote it about my 9th grade girlfriend. They love hearing that.
Well, kind of sticking on at your live performances, obviously you've been playing music for quite some time. Do you remember the first time you actually got on stage and performed as Burris?
As Burris, yes. It was in Baton Rouge. So I had a high school band, actually had a band in middle school, and then a band in high school, and we had good times and everything. And that's actually where I learned that I wanted to kind of play like rock and roll or whatever version of music I'm doing now for the rest of my life. But for Burris, it was in Baton Rouge. I had met up with a couple of the guys from the School of Music, and we got together and just started playing, and I showed them a lot of my songs, and we worked up a set list and went over across the campus and played at the Northgate Tavern. That was the first ever Burris show. It was a great time.
Now I know why the willow sad. Now I know why the willow weeps. Not for the love he never had, but for the love he couldn't keep. I broke down. The truth came out. I play this song for the people of the world that were planning to fight the wrong and take these dreams and start up a fire. Watch out, they gleam in the eyes of the world.
When I hear your songs, there's just something about them that feel very personal, and they feel very vivid. Like, you paint a very nice picture in your words, and the music really helps support that. When you craft those lyrics, do you try to write from an experiential standpoint, or do you try to maybe go somewhere different, like maybe craft a figurative story? Because there's definitely some sort of narrative going on there, but I don't know if this is something that you fabricated, taking elements of things that you know, or like this is just straight up something that you've gone through.
I think it's a combination. Well, I know it's a combination. A lot of the songs that I've written are based on like a real narrative that have happened in my life. But of course, maybe it's too personal, or it's something that like it's just I can't necessarily share, or something like that, or it's just not even all that exciting anyway. So I'll then have to take other aspects of other relationships, or even just other things that have happened to me, and sort of expand on that. So it's a little bit reality, it's a little bit lie. I think that's what a lot of the people that I look up to do as well. You know, when I listen to people that I really like as songwriters, like Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, I can't imagine that those things are happening to him all the time. So I think there's a little bit of he's fabricating things while he's also pulling from real life experiences. And that's what I want to do too.
Heard that. And I think I might hop onto your location right now because you're in New Orleans, right?
Of course.
How has New Orleans kind of influenced Burris's music?
Well, it's a beautiful thing to live here and to be surrounded by and be a musician that can make money completely from music. Completely. I know a lot of people that do it only by performing. I teach as well, but that's a pleasure, right? And so it's really cool to be able to go out every night of the week. Well, pre-COVID, every night of the week and see a band playing on a Tuesday. You could see something that would just completely blow your mind, you know? So it changed Burris's sound, one, because I incorporated a lot of those artists. Like I got a lot of the guys that I would see, or guys and girls that I would see playing around the city, to come play with us, to record with us. A lot of people are on the newest record. And it also changed the way that I wrote. New Orleans has a very dark energy about it. There's a lot of graveyards, there's voodoo, you know, there's that kind of stuff. There's late night things, there's vampire stories. So that energy has made me feel extra creative and a little bit more brooding too. And I think that if you go and you listen to some of the earlier stuff I've written and then the newer stuff that I've written, you can hear the New Orleans sound kind of creep its way into there for sure.
Obviously, at the time of recording this, COVID is still giving a lot of restrictions for a lot of places, but how is the music scene currently right there? Like, with the shows not being able to be as maybe as happening as they once were, how are the musicians kind of communicating, or are you guys having that same kind of experience?
It's been a very interesting experience and a challenge, of course, but I was appreciative to see myself and a lot of other musicians that I know adapt. So we all at the beginning had to become recording engineers and video producers because we had to learn how to do live streams, because that was really the only way to play for a good while. And a lot of people got really good at it. You know, you buy the right equipment and do some trial and error stuff, and that ended up turning out really cool. And I'm glad that I have that skill now too. But then New Orleans started to kind of open up when the weather got a little bit nicer, and you could see people walking around on the streets, or just like in this, there's an area called the Bayou and in the park, and there'd be little bands set up here and there. The beautiful thing about New Orleans is they have traditional music, trad jazz. So like trad jazz bands would just be set up in the corners of every park and just kind of playing and making sure people stay nice and socially distanced, but you can still hear that music in the air. So it's cool to see people adapt like that. Things are starting to get better now. I actually have gigs every day this weekend, so that's nice. So we're moving on up, I think.
Heard that. Sounds like a fun time for sure. I know it's a lot of work, but I think it definitely has paid off, because you got a new album. Well, it's technically a two-parter, Over You Part 1 and 2. And it tells a story of like a breakup, and it's like the whirlwind of emotions that kind of come from that. What was it like putting that record together in two parts like that? It was
fun. When I wrote the record, I've written it just over a long period of time. So the actual relationship that the record talks about was about 5 years ago, which is crazy to think about now. But, you know, making a record is a process. I wrote the songs over time. We workshopped them a lot. We played them live. And then finally decided, let's sit down and let's cut this record. And we found Chris Finney, who seems to be really on board just with the Burris sound and knew us from around New Orleans and everything. So we had a nice relationship. And by that point, it all worked out. We were able to go to Studio in the Country, which is this just lovely place just outside of New Orleans, where like Stevie Wonder has recorded and Kansas has been there. They did Carry On My Wayward Son there, so it's got a lot of history. And I think there was where we sort of fleshed out the ideas of what's going to happen once we started recording and hearing the songs, and I started understanding the narrative of this is really just telling the story of this breakup and the 5 years that have followed since, and what I've done, like moving to New Orleans, and how I've tried to date other people, but then still been lost in love, and like, then being confused. Like that whole story really was true. And I found that the songs actually told that. So that's where we decided to do it in 2 stages. And COVID also influenced that as well, because there was no live music. So we wanted to release over a period of time to kind of just keep momentum going. And it ended up just kind of all working out and coming together. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of time. But I think that that's a beautiful thing. The more you invest in something, the better the product usually is. And so I have something that I'm pretty proud about that's going to last a while, I hope.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Well, you can tell it came right from your heart. You put your heart and soul into it, and it's out now for people to listen to online. But if people want to keep up with you, how can they find you on the internet?
You can look us at Burris Music, Burris music.com. That's going to have links to all our Spotify accounts and everything that you can stream and find us there. So that's probably the hub for you.
Wonderful. Well, Burris, man, it's been an awesome time talking to you. Really, really appreciate it. But before we go, I got one more question. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a Big Bang Radio spotlight before, but I'm a musician, but I also love film. I mentioned to you we would bring up film before this interview started. So I love film. I believe the two worlds are not too far away from each other, music and film. And I want to ask all the artists that I talk to right before they go, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie of all time is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a really random one, but it's a funny movie, but it's got a good message as well. So it always stuck with me.
Thanks to Burris for sitting down with us and talking all about his music. If you guys want to see more interviews just like this, you can find us online at Studio 67 NCC. Thank you all for watching. I'm Isaac Anderson, and until next time, stay lovely.